A heart wrapped in ice, Rachel Bennett stood before the full-length mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the simple ivory dress that hung perfectly on her slender frame. This was the second time in 8 months she had prepared for a wedding. The first dress, an elaborate creation of lace and pearls, now lay buried at the bottom of her closet. A painful reminder of the day she discovered her fiancé tangled in the sheets with her bridesmaid just hours before their ceremony. The memory still stung like a fresh wound. Even though 6 months had passed, she could still hear the sounds coming from the hotel room. Still see the shock on their faces when she opened the door. Still feel the complete shattering of everything she believed about love and trust. This dress was different. No illusions, no fairy tale dreams. Just clean lines and honest fabric. Perfect for what this marriage actually was. A business. Arrangement wrapped in legal documents and mutual benefit. The proposal nobody expected. Claire Thompson, her best friend since college, sat on the edge of the bed, worry etched across her face. She had been silent for the past 20 minutes, watching Rachel prepare with growing concern. Finally, she spoke. "Rachel, are you absolutely certain about this? Marrying someone you barely know is one thing, but marrying James Mitchell?" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Everyone says he's broken somehow, that he can't feel things the way normal people do." Rachel turned from the mirror, meeting her friend's concerned gaze. "That's exactly why I'm doing this, Claire. James needs a wife to silence the gossip that's hurting his business. I need stability and a fresh start without the complications of romance. We both get what we need, without anyone getting hurt." "But the rumors, Rachel? People say he's never had a real relationship, that his ex-girlfriend left him because he was cold, distant. Some even whisper that he's physically incapable of intimacy." A bitter smile crossed Rachel's lips. "Good. After what Daniel did to me, the last thing I want is passion or desire. Those things are just pretty lies that lead to betrayal. James and I have honesty. We have a clear agreement. No expectations means no disappointments." Claire shook her head, her curly auburn hair bouncing with the movement. The Rachel I knew believed in grand gestures and epic love stories. "What happened to her?" "She grew up," Rachel replied, her voice hardening. "She learned that fairy tales are fiction, and that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Now, are you going to help me with this veil, or keep questioning my choices?" Claire stood, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but she moved to help her friend. "I'll always support you, Rach, even when I think you're making a mistake." The ceremony, the small chapel, was elegant in its simplicity. White roses lined the aisle, and soft piano music filled the air. Only close family and a handful of friends attended. This wasn't a celebration. It was a formality. At least that's what Rachel kept telling herself. Her father squeezed her arm gently as they stood at the chapel entrance. "It's not too late to change your mind, sweetheart. I'll support whatever decision you make." "I know, Dad, but this is what I want. James is a good man, and we understand each other. That's more than most people have." The doors opened, and Rachel began her walk down the aisle. Then she saw him, and something unexpected happened. Her carefully constructed composure faltered. James Mitchell stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his tall frame radiating quiet strength. His dark brown hair was styled back from his face, revealing strong features, a defined jawline, full lips, and eyes the color of warm honey that seemed to hold depth she hadn't expected. But it wasn't his striking appearance that made her stumble slightly. It was the way he looked at her. The unexpected connection there was nothing cold or distant in that gaze. His eyes tracked her every movement with an intensity that made her skin flush. She saw his chest rise and fall with a deep breath as their eyes met. His hands clasped in front of him, tensed visibly. This wasn't the look of a man going through the motions of a business arrangement. This was the look of a man seeing something that awakened something deep within him. Rachel's heart, which she had convinced herself was safely locked away, began to beat faster. Her palms grew damp against the simple bouquet of white lilies she carried. She became acutely aware of every step, every breath, every second that brought her closer to him. When she finally reached the altar, her father placed her hand in James's. The contact sent an electric current through her entire body. His hand was large, warm, and gentle. He held her as if she were something precious that might break. His thumb traced a small circle on the back of her hand, a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. "You look beautiful," he whispered, his voice low and rough with emotion. The words were simple, but the way he said them, with complete sincerity and wonder, made something crack in the walls she had built around her heart. Rachel couldn't respond. She could only stare into those honey-colored eyes and wonder if she had made a terrible miscalculation. Vows that mean more. The ceremony proceeded, but Rachel barely heard the minister's words. She was too focused on James, on the way he never looked away from her, on the way his hand trembled slightly in hers, on the barely contained energy she could feel radiating from him. When it came time for vows, James turned to fully face her, taking both her hands in his. His voice was steady but filled with emotion she hadn't expected. "Rachel, I promise to respect you always, to protect you from harm, to be honest with you in all things." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "And I promise that you will never have reason to doubt my commitment to you. What we build together will be real, and it will be worth protecting." The words seemed to carry more weight than the simple agreement they had discussed. Rachel felt tears prick her eyes as she repeated her own vows, her voice barely above a whisper. Then came the kiss. Rachel had expected something brief and perfunctory, a simple seal on their contract. But when James leaned in, time seemed to slow. His hand came up to cradle the side of her face, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. The touch was reverent, almost worshipful. His lips met hers with a softness that surprised her. The kiss started gentle, a careful exploration, but then something shifted. His other hand moved to the small of her back, pulling her closer. The kiss deepened, becoming something real, something honest, something that had nothing to do with their practical arrangement, and everything to do with genuine desire. Rachel's hands moved of their own accord, gripping the lapels of his suit to steady herself. She could feel the solid warmth of his body, the thundering of his heart against her own chest, the barely restrained passion in the way his lips moved against hers. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing heavily, James's eyes were dark with desire. "That was real," he whispered, so only she could hear. "I need you to know that was real." Before Rachel could process his words or her own overwhelming response, applause erupted around them. They were married. The agreement was sealed. But as they walked back down the aisle together, her hand firmly clasped in his, Rachel realized with both excitement and terror that nothing about this arrangement was going to be as simple as she had planned. The journey begins. The reception was small and intimate, held at an elegant restaurant overlooking the city. Rachel watched James interact with the guests, noting how he seemed most comfortable in one-on-one conversations. He wasn't cold or distant, as the rumors suggested. He was thoughtful, listening intently when people spoke, responding with careful consideration. Several times throughout the evening, she caught him watching her. Each time their eyes met, she felt that same electric current, that same sense of something significant hovering between them. Claire approached her during dinner, pulling her aside. "Okay, I have to admit, the way he looks at you?" She fanned herself dramatically. "That is not the look of a man incapable of feeling. That's the look of a man completely captivated." "It's probably just an act for the guests," Rachel said, but her voice lacked conviction. Rachel, honey, I've known you long enough to know when you're lying to yourself. Whatever you thought this marriage would be, I don't think that's what it's actually going to be." Before Rachel could respond, James appeared at her side, offering his hand. "Dance with me?" She placed her hand in his, letting him lead her to the small dance floor. As they swayed to the soft music, his arms around her, her head resting against his chest, Rachel felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Dangerous, terrifying hope that maybe not all love stories ended in betrayal. "What are you thinking?" James asked softly, his breath warm against her ear. "That this is more complicated than I expected," she admitted. She felt him smile against her hair. "Good complicated or bad complicated?" "I don't know yet." His arms tightened around her slightly. "I guess we'll figure it out together." As the evening ended and they prepared to leave for their honeymoon suite, Rachel realized that her carefully constructed plan for a safe, emotionless marriage was already crumbling, and the most terrifying part was that she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to stop it. The morning after soft golden sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of the honeymoon suite, casting gentle shadows across the room. Rachel woke slowly, her senses coming alive one by one. She felt the warmth of another body beside her, heard the steady rhythm of breathing, smelled the faint scent of sandalwood and something uniquely masculine. Her eyes opened to find James already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest tighten. His hair was tousled from sleep, and in the morning light he looked younger, less guarded. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice still rough with sleep. "I hope I didn't wake you. How long have you been awake?" Rachel asked, pulling the sheet higher, suddenly aware of how intimate this moment felt. "A while. I couldn't stop watching you sleep. You looked so peaceful." He reached out hesitantly, then seemed to think better of it, his hand falling back to the mattress. "There's coffee and breakfast on the balcony when you're ready." The careful distance he maintained, despite the obvious desire in his eyes, touched something deep within her. He was keeping his promise, respecting the boundaries they had set. Even though last night had ended with them sharing this bed, talking until the early hours about everything and nothing. 3. Weeks of discovery, the weeks following their wedding, became a dance of growing intimacy and careful restraint. They lived in James's penthouse apartment, a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city skyline. Each morning, Rachel woke to find James had already prepared breakfast. Each evening, they shared dinner together, their conversations growing longer, more personal, more honest. Small moments began to define their relationship. James's hand finding hers as they walked through the park on Sunday mornings. The way he listened when she talked about her work, asking thoughtful questions that showed he truly cared. How he remembered she liked her coffee with cream and 2 sugars, was always preparing it perfectly, one rainy Thursday evening. Rachel found James in his study, surrounded by architectural drawings. He looked up as she entered, his face lighting up in a way that made her heart skip. "Come here. I want to show you something," he said. Pulling out the chair beside his desk, Rachel sat and James spread out a series of sketches before her. "This is a community center I'm designing for the East Side. It's been my passion project for 2 years. I've never shown anyone the plans before, but I wanted you to see them." He explained each element of the design. His voice filled with genuine excitement. Rachel realized she was falling for him. Not just attracted to him, but truly, deeply falling in love with the man behind the rumors. The man who designed community centers for underserved neighborhoods. The man who called his mother every Sunday. The man who looked at her like she was his entire world. "The weight of affection, James," she said softly, interrupting his explanation of the building's sustainable features. "Why do people say those things about you? About being cold and incapable of emotion?" His excitement dimmed, replaced by something sadder. He set down his pencil and turned to face her fully. "My ex-girlfriend, Vanessa Price. We were together for almost 2 years. I thought we were building something real, but I found out she was having an affair with my business partner, Robert Hayes." Rachel's breath caught. "I'm so sorry. When I confronted them and ended the relationship, Vanessa didn't handle the rejection well. She started spreading rumors, telling people I was emotionally unavailable, that I had problems with intimacy, that I was the reason our relationship failed. The rumors grew more vicious over time, and by the time I thought about fighting them legally, they had become accepted truth in certain circles." "That's horrible," Rachel whispered, reaching for his hand. "Why didn't you sue her for defamation?" "Because proving emotional damage is nearly impossible, and I didn't want to give her more attention. I thought if I ignored it, people would eventually see the truth. But in business, reputation is everything. The rumors started affecting my contracts, my partnerships. That's when I realized I needed to do something drastic." He squeezed her hand. "That's when I thought about finding a wife." Rachel leaned closer, her free hand coming up to touch his face. "For what it's worth, I don't believe any of those rumors. Not after living with you these past weeks." You're one of the most emotionally present people I've ever known. James turned his head, pressing a kiss to her palm. You have no idea how much that means to me. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken feelings. James leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his lips met hers in a kiss that was both tender and hungry. Filled with weeks of restrained desire, the Charity Galette, the annual Architectural Excellence Gala, was held at the grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel. A glittering event that brought together the city's most influential architects, developers, and business leaders. Rachel wore a deep blue gown that hugged her curves and made her green eyes stand out brilliantly. James looked devastating in his black tuxedo, and the way his eyes had darkened when he first saw her made her pulse race. You're stunning, he had whispered, his hand settling possessively on her lower back as they entered the ballroom. The evening started well. James introduced her to colleagues and friends, his pride in her evident in every word and gesture. They danced his arms around her, feeling like the safest place in the world. Rachel felt happy in a way she hadn't felt since before her first failed engagement. Then Vanessa. Price appeared. She was impossible to miss. Tall and model-thin, with platinum blonde hair styled in an intricate updo, wearing a red dress cut dangerously low. But it was her smile that set off alarm bells in Rachel's mind. Sharp, predatory, and fixed directly on James. James Mitchell, Vanessa purred, gliding toward them with practiced grace. How wonderful to see you here. And you must be the new wife I've heard so much about. Her tone was sweet, but her ice blue eyes were calculating as they raked over Rachel, Vanessa James said. His voice flat, his body tensing beside Rachel. I didn't know you'd be attending. Darling, I'm always invited to these things. You know that. She turned her attention to Rachel, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Vanessa Price. I'm James's ex-girlfriend. Well, ex-fiancée. Technically, though. James likes to downplay what we had. Rachel shook her hand briefly, noting the coldness of Vanessa's fingers. Rachel Bennett. Well, Rachel Mitchell now. How sweet, Vanessa said, her smile widening. Tell me, dear, how are you finding married life? Is James treating you well? Very well, Rachel replied, moving closer to James, whose arm immediately wrapped around her waist. That's wonderful. Though I have to admit, I'm surprised you went through with it. Vanessa's voice carried just loud enough for nearby guests to hear, and several heads turned their way. Did James tell you why we really broke up? We're not doing this here, James said firmly, trying to guide Rachel away. But Vanessa wasn't finished. She raised her voice slightly, drawing more attention. I think Rachel deserves to know the truth, don't you? About your little problem? The public humiliation. Rachel felt James's entire body go rigid beside her. Around them, conversations were dying down as more people tuned in to what was happening. Vanessa, stop, James said, his voice low and dangerous. Stop what? Telling the truth? Vanessa's eyes glittered with malicious glee. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's only fair that James's new bride knows what she's gotten herself into. You see, James and I were together for 2 years. 2 long years where I tried everything to make our relationship work, but there was one fundamental problem. Rachel's heart was pounding. She could see the humiliation beginning to creep into James's expression. Could feel his hand trembling slightly where it rested on her hip. James has a condition, Vanessa continued, her voice dripping with false sympathy. He's physically incapable of intimacy. Oh, he can kiss and hold hands, but anything beyond that. She made a dismissive gesture. Impossible. I tried to be patient, tried to be understanding, but eventually I had to accept that he simply wasn't a complete man. Gasps echoed around the ballroom. Rachel felt sick, not because she believed the lie, but because she could see the devastating effect it was having on James. His face had gone pale. His jaw clenched so tight she worried he might crack a tooth. That's why I left him, Vanessa said, addressing the growing crowd now. Because what woman can stay in a marriage without physical love? And I have proof, if anyone doubts me. Medical records, emails where James discusses his condition with doctors. I could share them, but I'm not cruel. She looked at Rachel with mock pity. I'm just trying to save you from the same disappointment I experienced, dear. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel could feel dozens of eyes on them, could hear the whispers starting, could see phones being raised to capture this moment of public humiliation. The moment of doubt, James released her, stepping back as if trying to put physical distance between them and this disaster. His eyes, usually so warm when they looked at her, were now filled with shame and defeat. "James," Rachel started, reaching for him. "Don't," he said quietly. "Just don't." And then he turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the middle of the ballroom, with Vanessa's triumphant smile burning into her consciousness. Rachel found him an hour later on the hotel's rooftop terrace, leaning against the railing, staring out at the city lights. The cool night air whipped around them, and she hugged herself against the chill. "You shouldn't have come looking for me," James said without turning around. His voice sounded hollow, broken. "Of course I came looking for you. You're my husband," he laughed bitterly. "Some husband. A man who can't even defend himself against vicious lies. A man whose reputation is so damaged that his own wife probably doubts him." "I don't doubt you," Rachel said. But even as the words left her mouth, she heard the hesitation in her voice. James heard it too. He turned to face her, and the hurt in his eyes was like a physical blow. "Don't you?" "Because I can see it on your face, Rachel. You're wondering if maybe there's some truth to what she said. Wondering if that's why I've been so careful with you, so restrained." "That's not true," Rachel protested, but her voice wavered. The truth was, a small seed of doubt had been planted. She thought back over the past 3 weeks. James had been affectionate, yes, tender and caring, but he had never pushed for more physical intimacy. Every time their kisses had grown more heated, he had been the one to pull back. Every night, even though they shared a bed, he kept a respectful distance. Was it respect? Or was it something else? "The breaking point, I can see you thinking about it," James said, his voice raw with pain, analyzing every moment between us. "Wondering if I've been holding back because I'm a gentleman, or because I can't give you what a real husband should? James, please. I know Vanessa is lying. I know you're not broken or incapable of anything. I've felt how you respond to me. I've seen the desire in your eyes. But you still doubt," he said flatly. "Even just a little. And that little bit of doubt, it's enough to destroy everything we've been building." Rachel felt tears stinging her eyes. "That's not fair. She said those things in front of everyone. She claimed to have proof. Is it so wrong that I'm trying to understand?" "Understand what?" His voice rose for the first time. "Understand whether your husband is man enough for you? Whether you made a mistake marrying someone who might not be able to satisfy you?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying, Rachel?" "Because from where I'm standing, it sounds exactly like that." The silence between them was heavy with hurt and misunderstanding. Rachel wanted to reach for him, to reassure him, but she couldn't find the words. And her hesitation spoke louder than any words could have. James nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. "I think I need some space tonight. I'll stay at my office. You should go home, get some rest. James, please don't leave like this." But he was already walking away, his shoulders squared against some invisible weight. Rachel watched him go, tears streaming down her face, and wondered how everything had fallen apart so quickly. The empty apartment. Rachel returned to their apartment alone. The space that had felt warm and welcoming now seemed cold and empty. She changed out of her gown mechanically, pulled on one of James's t-shirts, and climbed into their bed. But sleep wouldn't come. She kept replaying the evening in her mind. Vanessa's cruel words, the shame in James's eyes, her own moment of doubt that had caused irreparable damage. Around 3 a.m, she heard the front door open quietly. Her heart leaped, hoping James had come home. She heard movement in the living room, the sound of someone settling onto the couch. Part of her wanted to go to him, but she was paralyzed by uncertainty and regret. Then she heard it. A sound so quiet, she almost missed it. The muffled sound of crying. James was in the living room, alone in the dark, breaking apart. And it was her doubt that had pushed him to this point. Rachel pressed her face into the pillow, her own tears soaking the fabric. She had been so focused on protecting her heart that she had forgotten James had a heart that could be broken too, and she had just shattered it. Days of silence the next morning. James was gone before Rachel woke. He left a note on the kitchen counter saying he had early meetings and would be working late. The same pattern continued for 3 days. He left before dawn and returned after midnight. They existed in the same space, but lived separate lives. Connected by nothing but legal documents and fading hopes, Rachel tried to focus on her marketing projects. But her mind kept wandering to James, to the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, to his patient explanations of architectural concepts, to the gentle way he touched her, as if she were something precious. Claire came over on the 3rd day, taking one look at Rachel's red-rimmed eyes and pulling her into a hug. "Tell me everything," Claire demanded. Through tears, Rachel recounted the entire disaster. Vanessa's public humiliation, James's pain, her own damaging moment of doubt. "Oh, honey," Claire said, stroking Rachel's hair. "You have to fix this. You have to show him you believe in him completely. But how? He won't even stay in the same room with me. And what if Vanessa really does have proof of something? What if there's some truth buried in her lies?" "Do you love him?" Claire asked directly. Rachel froze. She had been avoiding that question, even in her own thoughts. But sitting there in Claire's supportive embrace, the truth spilled out. "Yes, God help me. I love him so much it hurts. And I destroyed everything by doubting him when he needed me most." "Then you fight for him," Claire said firmly. "You find out the real truth, and you show him that you believe in him. You show him that love isn't about never having doubts. It's about choosing to trust, even when doubt tries to creep in." The investigation that afternoon, Rachel made a decision. She couldn't continue living in this limbo of uncertainty. She needed to know the absolute truth, not so she could judge James, but so she could arm herself with facts to fight against the lies. She hired a private investigator, a woman named Margaret Davis, who came highly recommended for her discretion and thoroughness. Margaret listened to the whole story without judgment, taking notes and asking pointed questions. "Give me 3 days," Margaret said. "If there's truth to be found, I'll find it." 3 days were torture. Rachel barely slept, barely ate. She left messages for James that went unanswered. She wrote and deleted a dozen texts trying to explain, to apologize, to beg for another chance. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, Margaret called. "Meet me at the Cornerstone Cafe in an hour. I have everything you need." The evidence Rachel's hands trembled as she stirred her untouched coffee.
Watching Margaret Davis spread documents across the small cafe table.
The private investigator's expression was professional, but her eyes held a hint of anger. "I've been doing this work for 15 years, Margaret began, her voice low and controlled. "I've uncovered affairs, fraud, hidden assets, and all manner of deception. But what Vanessa Price did to your husband, that's one of the cruelest campaigns of character assassination I've ever documented." She pushed the first set of documents toward Rachel. "These are bank records showing payments from Vanessa Price to a tabloid journalist named Todd Fleming. Over 18 months, she paid him nearly $50,000 to plant stories about James in various gossip columns and online forums." Rachel's breath caught as she scanned the records. Each payment was carefully documented, each corresponding to a particularly vicious article or social media post about James's supposed inadequacies. "There's more," Margaret continued, sliding over another folder. "Text messages between Vanessa and Robert Hayes, James's former business partner. The affair started 6 months before James discovered them. These messages show they were actively planning to take over James's firm by destroying his reputation first." Rachel read through the messages, each one making her feel sicker. Vanessa and Robert discussing how to break James, how to spread rumors that would make clients question his stability, how to isolate him socially and professionally. The medical record she mentioned. Margaret's jaw tightened. James did see a doctor 3 years ago, but it was for a routine physical required for a life insurance policy. He's in perfect health. Vanessa obtained those records legally through a contact at the medical office and then fabricated additional pages suggesting some kind of dysfunction. "I've already contacted the medical board and the police. She'll be facing charges for medical records theft and forgery." The weight of truth Rachel's vision blurred with tears as she processed everything. James had been telling the truth all along. More than that, he had been the victim of a calculated, vicious campaign designed to destroy him, and she had doubted him at the moment he needed her trust most. "There's one more thing," Margaret said gently. "I interviewed 3 of James's ex-girlfriends from before Vanessa. All of them spoke highly of him. One of them, Patricia Wells, specifically said she broke up with him because he wanted too much emotional intimacy, not too little. She said, and I quote, 'James Mitchell is the most emotionally present and physically capable man I've ever dated.' I just wasn't ready for that level of commitment." Rachel covered her face with her hands, sobs shaking her shoulders. "What have I done? He trusted me, and I let Vanessa's poison infect my thoughts. I hurt him so badly." Margaret reached across the table, squeezing Rachel's hand. "Then you use this information to fix it. You show him that you fought for the truth, that you believe in him completely." Rachel nodded, wiping her tears. She gathered all the documents carefully, holding them like the precious weapons they were. She had been so wrong, but she would spend however long it took making it right. The confrontation. Rachel returned to their apartment mid-afternoon, surprised to find James there. He was in the study, surrounded by moving boxes, carefully packing his architecture books and drawings. Her heart stopped. "What are you doing?" James didn't turn around. "I thought it would be easier this way. I'll move my things out while you're at work over the next few days. You can keep the apartment. I'll have my lawyer send over the divorce papers by the end of the week." "Divorce?" The word came out as a strangled whisper. "It's what you want, isn't it?" His voice was hollow, defeated. "You can't live with the doubt, Rachel. And I can't live with seeing that doubt in your eyes every time you look at me." Rachel crossed the room quickly, placing herself between James and the box he was packing. "Stop. Please stop and look at me." He finally met her eyes, and what she saw there broke her heart all over again. His honey-colored eyes, usually so warm, were dull and lifeless. Dark circles shadowed them, speaking of sleepless nights. He looked like a man who had given up. "There's nothing left to say," he said quietly. "Yes, there is." Rachel pulled the envelope from her bag, her hands shaking. "There's so much to say. Starting with the fact that I was wrong. So completely, utterly wrong." She thrust the envelope at him. "Open it, please." James took the envelope reluctantly, pulling out the documents. Rachel watched as his expression changed while he read. Confusion, then shock, then something that looked like fragile hope. "You investigated Vanessa?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "I needed the truth. Not because I didn't believe you, but because I needed concrete proof to fight against the lies. And James, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I doubted you even for a second. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stand beside you without question that night. I'm sorry I hurt you." James set the documents down, his hands trembling. "Rachel, you don't have to apologize. You had every right to have questions after what Vanessa said." "No," Rachel said firmly, stepping closer. "I didn't. I should have known better. Because I've lived with you for weeks. I've seen who you really are. You're kind and thoughtful and emotionally present in ways most people can't even comprehend. You've shown me more genuine affection and care than anyone ever has. And the first time that was tested, I failed you." Breaking down the walls, tears were streaming down Rachel's face now, but she didn't try to wipe them away. "I love you, James. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you looked at me at that altar. Maybe even before that. And when Vanessa tried to destroy you, I should have been the first person screaming the truth. Instead, I let her poison take root, even just for a moment, and that moment was enough to nearly destroy everything." James stood frozen, staring at her as if he couldn't quite believe what he was hearing. "You love me?" "I love you," Rachel repeated, reaching for his hands. "I love how you prepare my coffee every morning. I love how you listen when I talk about my work like it's the most fascinating thing in the world. I love how gentle you are, how patient. I love the way you look at me like I'm the only person in the room. I love that you design community centers for neighborhoods that need them. I love everything about you." "Rachel," James whispered, his voice breaking. "I know you've been holding back with me physically," Rachel continued, "but it wasn't because of some inability. It was because you were respecting the boundaries I set when we got married. You were being a gentleman when every instinct probably told you to claim me completely, and that just makes me love you more." James pulled her against him suddenly, burying his face in her hair. His body shook with silent sobs, weeks of pain and loneliness and fear finally finding release. "I thought I lost you," he choked out. "I thought you believed Vanessa. I thought you were disgusted by me." Rachel pulled back just enough to cup his face in her hands. "Never. I could never be disgusted by you. You're the best man I've ever known, and I'm so incredibly sorry I made you doubt that even for a second." The first true kiss, James looked at her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers for any hint of remaining doubt. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him because he leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Rachel didn't pull away. She met him halfway, and when their lips touched, it was like coming home. This kiss was different from all the others. There was no hesitation, no restraint, no walls between them. It was raw and honest, filled with weeks of pent-up desire and newly acknowledged love. James's hands slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. Rachel pressed against him, her hands exploring the solid warmth of his back through his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, James rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he whispered. "I've loved you from the beginning. Every moment with you has been torture and paradise all at once. Wanting you so badly but afraid to push, afraid you'd never see me as anything more than a safe option." "I see," Rachel said. "I see all of you, James Mitchell, and I want all of you." His eyes darkened with desire. "Are you sure? Because if we cross this line, there's no going back. I won't be able to hold back anymore." "Good," Rachel said firmly. "I don't want you to hold back. I want you, James. All of you. Now. Always." Proving Vanessa wrong, what happened next was a passionate blur of revealed truths and physical confirmations. James proved beyond any shadow of doubt that every rumor Vanessa had spread was a malicious lie. He was attentive, passionate, and completely capable of expressing his love physically as well as emotionally. Afterward, lying tangled together in their bed, the city lights twinkling through the windows, Rachel traced lazy patterns on James's chest. "I can't believe I almost lost this," she whispered. "I almost lost you." James caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "You didn't, though." "We found our way back to each other. What are we going to do about Vanessa? She's facing criminal charges, but she'll keep spreading lies until she's forced to stop." James was quiet for a moment. "We're going to do exactly what Margaret suggested in her report. We're going to sue her for defamation, using all this evidence. We're going to make it publicly clear that she manufactured lies to destroy me because I rejected her. And we're going to show the world that we're stronger together than any lies she can tell." Rachel smiled, snuggling closer. "I like that plan. But first," James said, rolling over so he hovered above her, his eyes full of love and mischief, "I think we have weeks of restrained desire to make up for." Rachel laughed, pulling him down for another kiss. "I like that plan even better." 3 months later, the community center James had been designing opened a massive public celebration. The building was beautiful, a perfect blend of modern architecture and warm, welcoming spaces. Children ran through the halls. Parents gathered in the cafe area. Teens clustered around the new computer lab. Rachel stood beside James, watching him interact with the neighborhood residents who would use this facility. His face glowed with genuine joy and pride. This was what he had been meant to do: create spaces that brought communities together. The past 3 months had been transformative. The lawsuit against Vanessa was proceeding, and public opinion had shifted dramatically once the evidence became public. Several of James's former clients had reached out to apologize and renew their contracts. His firm was thriving again. More importantly, their marriage was thriving. What had started as a practical arrangement had blossomed into a deep, genuine love. They had learned to communicate openly, to trust completely, to love without reservation. Vanessa's attempt to destroy James had ultimately made them stronger. "Hey," James said, appearing at her side and wrapping an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "About how our friends all mocked my choice to marry you," Rachel said with a smile. "How everyone thought I was making a mistake, and James prompted, kissing her temple. And how what happened that night after the gala left them all speechless. How we proved that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing to trust, to fight, to believe in each other, even when the world tries to tear you apart. James turned her to face him, his eyes full of love. You know what the best part is? What? This is just the beginning. We have a lifetime to keep proving the doubters wrong. Rachel reached up to kiss him, not caring that they were surrounded by people. I can't wait. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, surrounded by a community celebrating a dream James had built, Rachel realized something profound. True love wasn't found in perfect circumstances or flawless people. It was forged through challenges overcome, doubts conquered, and the choice to stand together against whatever came. Her friends had mocked her choice to marry a man everyone said was broken. But that night at the gala, and in the weeks that followed, what happened between them left everyone speechless. Because they had proven that love, real love, could survive anything. Even the cruelest lies. Even moments of doubt. Even broken trust.